bitches.
Hi, hello, and welcome back to another episode.
Today we're back to folklore or mythology, whichever you prefer. And we're talking about Circe and Medea, which you already know if you read the show notes or the
Yeah, true.
episode title. um, but I'm gonna go first. We're gonna talk about Circe first because she was the first witch according to mythology. um, Circe is the daughter of Hecate and Hermes. There's also other accounts that say that she was the daughter of the sea nymph Perseus and the sun god Helios, but um, more of the stories and even the ones that say that she was the daughter of the Perseus and Helios say that she still had a mother-daughter like relationship with Hecate, which makes sense because you know the goddess of witches or whatever, and the first witch. It makes sense. Um, she had two brothers in one of the myths, named Aedes, and he's the guy that looked after the golden fleece. If you know that story, um, and the second brother was Perses. Um, I literally as soon as we start recording, it's like he can hear my voice and he's like, "Hey bitches, don't forget me. Odin wants to be on the podcast." Um, and then like we said before, or well, I guess we didn't say it yet, but Circe and Medea are supposed to be sisters, and they are the daughters of Hecate. Circe being she's an herbal witch and she works with the elements, whereas Medea was the mother of poisons. Not saying that Circe didn't do poisons, but Medea was more on the poison path. Um, she's described as a beautiful sorceress with flaming red hair who lived on the island of Aea. And Aea is spelled Aeaea. So it's a palindrome, spelled the same forward and backward. And the name of it was considered to be magical in itself because it was a palindrome. And then Circe, these are all the origins. That's what I'm going through now. Circe, the name can be translated to falcon, and she often used this bird of prey in her magic, and lots of modern witches will use the falcon or um, symbols of the falcon to work with Circe, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But we're doing Circe and Medea because Emily just follows my whims and lets me do what I want sometimes. And I just read this book, Entering Hecate's Garden by Cindy Brannon, for a book club with Sigil Spellcasters. Um, and it talks a lot about Hecate, Circe, and Medea, their relationship, and their relationship to Pharmakeia, and all the different herbs and plant spirits. Which, since reading, I've been very obsessed with the idea of wood nymphs and like tree spirits. So I don't know. That's
I
kind of,
I think nymphs are so fucking cool.
yeah.
I never
Like,
say the word correctly, but I love it. Love it.
well, and
Nymphs. I
after
always say
reading this
nymphs
book,
like imps.
I kept having dreams before I read this book about Gia, and like she often presents in the form of a wood nymph when she presents in like a more humanoid form. Um And then I read this book, and it has a lot to do with nymphs as well, which led me to Circe. And I've been feeling kind of a calling to Circe ever since reading this book. Well, really, always. I've always been obsessed with the idea of Circe. Honestly, how 6-year-old me reading all this shit, like fairy tales and shit, didn't know I was going to be a witch. I don't know. I don't know. But
You were just a clueless Midwestern small time gal. You
seriously,
didn't know better.
so like hindsight is 2020 in so many different ways. I look back and I'm like obsessed with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I was obsessed with Greek mythology and Circe in particular, the because she's a witch. Even though in a lot of Greek mythology she's portrayed as kind of evil, aren't all women, but that's a whole different story. But this kind of brought that back to me. I'm very into Circe. But also hindsight is 2020 because there's so many things I look back at now that I was like, oh, I wasn't like wanting to be that person. I was being gay for that person. Like it just makes a lot of sense, okay?
Yeah.
Um Speaking that actually also works with Sabrina the Teenage Witch because literally we were watching the last season of The Masked Singer and Melissa Joan Hart walked out on that stage and I was like, those thighs are Melissa Joan Hart. I watched them on TV for years. Those are Melissa Joan Hart's thighs. And guess who was right? This bitch. Okay, I digress. But it was necessary information, okay? Um Back to Circe. Circe was learned in the magical arts and she communed with plant spirits and pharmakeia. If you want to know more about pharmakeia, I I've read this book. Like I cannot recommend this book enough. It was recommended to me by a friend, well, in the book club, but it's so good. Um and it has it's all about pharmakeia and how to work with plant spirits. And it kind of brings a like more depth to your spell casting because you know your ingredients and you know the spirits you're working with better. Um, she also used a wand or a staff. It was one of the first depictions of a wand or some kind of wooden object being used in magic. Um, and hers was called Rabdos, and she used it to channel her magic. I think hers was like a tall staff, like a Gandalf kind of thing. Like it was tall or Maleficent. It wasn't like a small wand. Like I have a wand, but it's very small. And for other baby witches who were like, "What the fuck do you use a wand for?" Um, I didn't realize until reading this book. Like I have one, and I've used it on my altar, and I've used it to like direct things and spell crafting and all that. But like I've never realized that you can use it to symbolize air. I didn't realize that. So for other people that also didn't realize that, when you're like putting out your candle and your earth and your um, water, you can use a wand and to symbolize air. I've always used feathers, but same kind of thing. You can use a wand. Um,
It's absolutely insane, like the symbolism of things.
right? I never would have guessed, but I like it. My chair is whoa, whoa. Get out of my chair. There's a cat in my chair. Okay. My chair just started shaking. I apologize. And I didn't know what
It's
was
that
happening.
ball he was chasing.
There's a cat in my chair. Well, he's out now, but I'm sure he'll be back in a moment. Anyway, um, in a lot of the mythology, it said that Circe lured sailors to her island to be her lover, and when finished with them, she turned them into swine or pigs. That is what happens in the story of Odysseus. Um, she tricks all of his sailors into coming. They drink the wine, and she turns them all into pigs. And then Odysseus comes to her. In some stories, it says that Hermes helps Odysseus trick Circe, and in some, it says that he just woos her and they fall in love. In the Odyssey, she falls in love with him, and she helps him on his quests once he leaves her island, but he stays on her island for a whole year. Um, and throughout their relationship, they have 3 sons: Ardius, Latinus, and Telegonus. Um, Before Odysseus, though, she married a human prince to take over his lands, which was like the Black Sea or something like that, or by the Black Sea. Excuse me. Um, and then as soon as they were married, she killed him so she could rule alone and have his lands. But when she was found out, she was obviously like hunted, and she exiled
That's so
herself.
fucked up.
Right? Some stories say she exiled herself to her enchanted island, like she fled to her enchanted island where she would be safe. Um, Other stories say that Poseidon, one of the Olympians, I think it was Poseidon, exiled her there because they found out that what she had done.
Chaos was trying to tell you that it was him.
That's Kemper.
Never mind.
He's not even in here. He's outside the door, which is why he's yowling like that, because he would like in here. These animals are a mess, y'all.
It's fine. Mine's in a cone and she just runs into everything, including walls.
I can't even imagine if Odin had to wear a cone. I think he would try to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Scar
keep
has
getting.
been a bowl in a china shop. Like, knocking everything over, like running into things. She tries to cuddle us at night, and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden we just hear like really, really, but it's like loud. It's amplified loud because she's scraping up against our wall, and I'm like, oh my god, what the
I
fuck?
keep getting sent all of these cute little like mom and dog outfits, and one of
Mm-hmm.
them it says "Where I go, trouble follows" on the sweatshirt, and then it's got a little like bandana thing for the dog, and it says "trouble," and I'm like, that's so fucking cute. He would eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we put his rabies tag on his collar, and he fucking ate it. I mean, he didn't swallow it, but like it's chewed to hell. You can barely read it.
Yeah, that sounds like a husky.
Yeah, he's a shithead. Okay, he's a menace.
Get a husky, they said. It would be fun, they said.
Oh my god. There were so many things that we were worried about, like how much energy he was going to have, how much hair he was going to have. No one warned me how much people were going to talk to me. Like, we go for a walk, and literally people will stop their car on the street to talk to us. And I'm like, ew. Like, don't. No. Mm-mm.
That's when you just tell them that you're a witch and you hiss at them and just keep walking.
He's not friendly. He's not friendly.
Me, I'm not friendly.
I should wear a shirt that says not friendly.
They
Oh my
actually make
gosh.
shirts like that. You know, like how they make
Like the collars.
like the do not approach or whatever kind of thing for
Yeah,
dogs. They make t-shirts like that for
dude.
people.
My shirt right now literally says I'm a ray of fucking sunshine.
I
I
love
would
it.
wear one. I would so wear one. I can't
Let me
even.
tell you. Mhm.
Speaking of crazy animals, Circe, she turns men into pigs, right? It's also, there were some
It's because they
stories,
are.
right? It wasn't a big transformation. Um, some stories say that not only did she turn men into swine, but if women crossed her, that she turned them into serpents. A lot of that, I think, is men being frightened of a powerful woman, because in other stories that seem a lot more likely based on what I know about Circe, it is said that these women are shapeshifters that she taught to turn themselves into snakes. Um, and they are priestesses who are under Circe's guidance.
The reason why women have to turn into snakes is so that they can slip out of men's clutches.
Right?
They have
Just
to
run the hell.
Be a
Get the
sneaky
hell out of there.
snake and get out of there. Yeah.
Ugh. Okay, a couple stories about Circe, like other mythology stories. Um, Circe was supposedly bathing in the ocean along with the water nymphs when Poseidon felt her magic touch and her beauty through the ocean, and he fell in love with her and took her as his lover. Together, they had a son named Phanos, who was god of the forests, or a god of the forests. But true to fashion, this pissed Aphrodite off. Um, and because she had been Poseidon's first lover and, was pissed off about Circe, even though all of the Olympians have many, many lovers, we're going to take it out on Circe, not Poseidon, because that's what we do. And she convinced Zeus to banish Circe and send her to live a mortal life because Circe, as the daughter of Hecate and Hermes, would be a goddess herself, but she ends up being mortal. And that's one story of how she became mortal. Another story um, about Circe, not about her, how she became mortal, but kind of harkens back to a previous folklore episode because it was said that Circe was in love. This was before Poseidon and before Odysseus. Circe was in love with Glaucus, a minor sea deity, but Glaucus knew not of her love because he only had eyes for Scylla, who was a beautiful maiden, some say nymph. Um, and Circe poisoned the water in which Scylla bathed, and it transformed her into, sorry, the cats are messing me up today. So Circe poisoned the water where Scylla bathed, which turned her into the hideous monster who later becomes famous for wrecking ships in conjunction with Charybdis. um okay, so kind of crazy story about one of Circe's um children. This is, so Greek mythology is so incestuous, it's not even funny. And this is one of those.
It's really fucking gross.
This one is one of the more mild stories. Um, so one of Circe and Odysseus's sons, his name is Telegonus. Um, he was king of the Etruscans, but he was sent by Circe to bring Odysseus to her. Um, and somehow when he got there, he accidentally killed his father instead. So now Odysseus is dead. And instead of bringing him back to Aea, to his mother, he brings back Odysseus's mortal wife Penelope and Telemachus, their son. When they all get back to the island, Circe marries Telemachus, which was Penelope and Odysseus's son, and Penelope, which is Telemachus's mom, who just married Circe, marries Telegonus, who is Circe and Odysseus's son. So the two brothers, both born of Odysseus, marry their dad's wives and mistresses. It's fucked up, isn't it?
I need one of those boards.
Right? Like, you need me to draw it out.
Yeah, so I need like pins, I need red string. I'm gonna
Yes, it's fucked up. Like, so they're not actually being incestuous technically because they're not actually related, but it's still a very intertwined story and it's kind of gross.
yeah. It definitely is.
Right, like, ooh, like, that's your daddy fucked that person and made you a brother, and now you're fucking that person. I just can't.
It's your auntie mama.
Right, right. auntie, mom, and wife. Like,
It's your
is
uncle daddy.
it's your auntie wife. Like,
It's your uncle daddy and your auntie mama.
your stepmama wife. I don't know. It's fucked up, is what it is. Um. Oh, and then at the end of that, happy story, Circe made a potion that made all four of them immortal, and they just lived on Aia for the rest of their lives, happily ever after. My sources for all of that, obviously, one of my sources is entering Hecate's garden. Another source is Coven of the Goddess, has an article about Circe, and then GreekLegendsAndMyths.com page about Circe. And then for modern witches, um, there's a lot in this book about how to work with Circe. Um, I can't recommend this book enough. If you're wanting to work with Hecate, Circe, or Medea, or just herbal magic in general, this book is really good. Um, but in order to connect with Circe and try to work with her, um, you're gonna want she likes wands. She uses a wand, a chalice for potions, the loom, and the blade. Those are her four main magical tools. Um, she's associated a lot with the sun, which has also been, I think that's another reason why I feel so connected to her, because so many witches are children of the moon, but I'm really not. I'm very affected by the moon, but I don't feel as attuned to the moon. I'm definitely more of a daylight person. I thrive in the sunlight. Other people say they charge in the moonlight. I do not. I charge with daylight. Um, and she also has powers that are chthonic, which is related to the underworld, because Hecate lives in the underworld. So yeah, she represents opposites a lot, because she is upper and underworld. She's emotional and intellectual. Um she found her strengths through weaknesses. Um and she's someone that's good to ask or to petition if you need help accepting the way things are, because she had to do that in her life with Odysseus. Eventually Odysseus was going to leave no matter how Circe felt about him, because he had like a whole fucking family back home. So, um, yeah, she's very good for revealing your own truth, communing with yourself, getting to the truth of a matter. Um, she is strongly associated with animals. So if you have any animal spirit work or anything like that, um, she is good to work with. Um, and then there is a spell in here, if you're interested, for Circe's protection packet, um, which banishes toxins, protects, and heals. Um, so check out this book if you want to know about that. And the author of this book, Cindy Brannon, also has a whole website. She has a lot of information on there. She has a blog. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And I might even put it on the social media so you can check it out later. But yeah, that is what I got for Circe.
That is so much information. And it's actually kind of cool because, like, some of the things you've talked about is stuff that I'm going to talk about.
I like it.
So,
Love when that
yay.
happens.
Okay, cool. So, hold on. Gotta get back to it. That's what happens when you have like 8,000 different like tabs open and 3 screens to look at.
I
So,
think it tired itself out.
oh, he definitely did. He was tired of being a menace to society. Speaking of menace to society, um, back where I grew up, there was a little gang, and the
Oh
gang was
my.
made up of like 5 people. And I went to high school with all 5 of those people. And it's not like they waited till after high school to get in this gang involved. They started it in like 8th grade, 9th grade. So a bunch of 8th and 9th graders decided to make a gang, make make gang signs, make like graffiti it everywhere, and they were called MTS, Menace to Society. And I was just like,
You're dumb.
I was like, what the fuck is MTS? And they're like, MTS for life. And I was like, okay, but what does it mean?
Right, you didn't answer my
Like, call me
fucking question,
stupid. I have
bro.
no idea what this means. And they're like, we're menaces to society. And I was like,
Yeah, you
okay,
are.
one of the gang. You want to know the funniest part? One of the leaders of the gang was in the band. He was
Well,
a band nerd.
I mean,
I mean, he rapped and he like smoked a lot of pot, but he was a
yeah, I
band
did.
nerd, and he ended up being the drum major our senior year. He was
Shut
like one of my
up.
best friends. I was like, bro, you stupid. And he goes, why? And I was like, where's MTS, bro? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, yeah,
I bet
yeah.
you don't.
He was one of my best friends in high school. So that was funny. Sorry, a little tidbit, menace to society. Because,
That is kind of funny. Oh, to
anyways,
be a teenager.
to be
Ugh.
stupid as a same. Like, there's a lot of things I like would like to go back and redo. High school, okay. I don't want to go back through high school. I don't want to go back through like the bullshit of high school. I would like to go back and change myself, not experience everything else I experienced. Like, I probably would have gone back and like been single. I would have gone back and like did more acting. I would have gone back and like
Just not
tried,
cared so much about what other people
yeah,
think. That's the
not
big thing
cried
for
at
me.
school every day because somebody said something about me and it got around to the school. I don't talk to anybody back from Peru. I don't
I don't either.
try to go back to Peru. Like, I don't try to do anything with my hometown except for visit family. And I barely do that.
I was gonna say I barely do that. Yeah, I don't
So,
either.
and honestly, it was really weird because like I post a lot of like political stances on Facebook and a lot
Mhm.
of like the podcast on Facebook. And I completely forget who I'm friends with until they like something. And the other day, some girl I actually grew up with, like, we went to school from like kindergarten all the way up to like graduation. She liked one of my posts, and I was like, I forgot you existed. But yeah, here
Right?
you go. Anyways, Medea. So you said your sources or whatever said that Medea and Circe were sisters?
Yes. Some sources said that Circe was Medea's aunt.
Yeah, I was gonna say all the sources I have are going to take it from the aunt's like background. So Medea is in typical like history is the daughter of King Aeetes of Colchis, um, a niece of Circe and the granddaughter of the sun god Helios on her father's side. So King Aeetes or whatever is the son of Helios, and he what is it? And he gets together with like an Oceanid um to have kids. So in where I'm talking about, um he is the father of Medea, Cahalciope or whatever. It's a female. it looks like Calliope, but every time I go to say it, I like stumble over my words and it just doesn't work. And Absyrtus, who is a male. So he gets together all of these things, and and according to the myth, he was the brother of Perses, king of Taurus, and husband of his niece Hecate. Um, so there's that. Anyways, um, so Medea is mainly known. She is a goddess. She's a witch. She's a sorceress, not a goddess, but like a sorceress of Hecate. She's often depicted as a priestess of the goddess Hecate, but most of the stories, if anything, depicts her as a sorceress. So that's kind of how we're going to address her as. She is known particularly from Jason and the Argonauts. She was a pivotal role in Hesiod's theogony. Um, so she's basically like main character energy in that. Um, of course, though, because of that, she plays the character of the helper maiden kind of thing, like can't do anything but does everything. If it wasn't for
Yeah.
her, like Jason wouldn't do shit. Um, so for those who are not familiar, Jason is on his search for the golden fleece. And if it wasn't for Medea, he would not have gotten it. He would not have succeeded in his task and his goals. And also, he wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Medea. And he is a fucking scumbag. And we'll talk about that here too. Um, so grows up, all of that kind of stuff. She's a witch, she's a sorceress, priestess of goddess Hecate. And all of a sudden, she meets Jason. So, and this is when Medea is technically first introduced. So after Jason came to Iolcus to Colchis, in an attempt to claim his inheritance and throne by retrieving the Golden Fleece um, with the Argonauts, according to uh, a surviving account of the ordeal, Hera had convinced Aphrodite to convince her son Eros, or Hera convinced Eros to cast a spell on Medea so that she would fall in love with Jason, um, and essentially promise her skills to him to succeed in the task that he was given. Um, she does promise her skills to Jason, but only if Jason promises to marry her after everything's all said and done. Jason agreed, knowing that Medea and her powers are definitely going to help him in the long run. So, um, yeah, so that starts the story of Jason and the Argonauts. Um, so Jason is promised the Golden Fleece through Aedes, but only if Jason can complete a set of tasks. Each one of these tasks, Medea plays a pivotal role in. The first task was plowing a field with fire-breathing oxen that Jason had to yoke himself. What the fuck does that mean? Yoke himself. Yoke definition. Oh, it's literally just plowing. It's like a type of plow that
Oh,
goes
okay.
up. I was like, yoke? What the fuck is
Yeah,
that?
I didn't know what that meant either.
um, it's not even yolk, it's yoke. So I
Yolk,
was like
like
really
it's like, yeah.
confused. Um, but anyway, so he had to plow it himself by tying two oxen up to a yoke and plowing the field. But here's the thing: they were fire breathing oxen. Um, so to help him with this, Medea gave him um, like I don't know, an unguent. It's basically like a preparation of like herbs and medicinal property kind of like
Oh,
plants
okay.
that you would spread on wounds, burns, rashes, and abrasions to kind of help protect him from possible wounds. So he did that to himself and to his weapons to protect them from the fiery breath. Um, and once he completed that task, his next task was to sew the teeth of a dragon. Now, that seemed pretty simple. However, each tooth um, that he would spring or like that he would take would spring into soldiers. And Medea forewarned him on this. Like she saw it happening. So, to help him with this, she threw a rock into the crowd to cause a confusion amongst the soldiers. And once they kind of forgot about Jason, they would start fighting each other. Very comical, very cartoony. And
Right.
I'm like, what? So they would attack and kill each other instead of Jason because they are just confused. So once he finished all of that, the last task, Aedes assigned Jason to fight and kill the sleepless dragon. Um, and that dragon so happened to guard the golden fleece that he was looking at. Medea aided him once again by putting the dragon to sleep using narcotic herbs, something to knock his ass out. So once he was asleep, Jason walked in, took the fleece, and sailed away with Medea as promised. Um, However, she was starting like something was happening to where like she wasn't gonna be able to leave. Like she had to distract her father for her to leave. And it's probably because like Jason needed to stay where he was. Like her parents probably were not a part of like the deal. Um and of course they're gonna do everything in their power to get rid of it. So to get away with it, because if the whole Hera convincing a love spell kind of thing happens, she's obviously going to do anything to stay with him. So, to do this, she distracted her father by killing her brother. Her own flesh and blood, she killed him. So
Right.
in some versions, Medea actually dismembered her brother's body and scattered his parts on an island, knowing her father would stop to retrieve them for a proper burial. But in other ones, Absyrtus himself pursued them and was actually killed by Jason. So depending on whatever it was, he died regardless. Um,
Okay.
in the Argonautica, Medea and Jason actually stopped on Circe's island so that she could be cleansed after murdering her brother, relieving her of blame for the deed. So she actually visited that island to something about her misdeeds. Um, During this time is about one of the only times you'll actually see Medea use her powers. Um, uh, because during the fight to get away, um, someone was helping Jason in his quest and was seriously wounded. Medea was able to use her powers to heal the wound. So that was the only time anyone actually saw the powers work.
Okay.
Which makes you wonder, is Medea really a sorceress? Like, are you
I don't
just
know.
faking it? But whatever. Anyways, so Medea and Jason leave to go back to where he is from, which I forget at this point. Nonetheless, not a problem. But the myth actually turns out pretty fucking horrible. So after all of this, um, what is it? Uh, I'll Iolcus, something like that. Um, Returning to Iolcus, the daughters, uh, King Peleus daughters had asked Medea to do the same thing for their father. So, because he was refusing to give the throne to Jason, Medea thought of making his daughters kill him. She told them that she could restore life by cutting a person in pieces and boiling the parts with herbs. So the daughters killed their father and threw the body and parts in a pot. Thus, this was the ending of a master plan that the goddess Hera had conceived to kill Peleus for being disobedient. It was her who made Jason fall in love with Medea, knowing that she had the power to kill Peleus in the future. However, some accounts say that the only way, like Jason knew about this, the only way that like he knew all of this was going to happen if Hera like forced her to fall in love with him. All of that. So after that murder, Jason and Medea went to Corinth and had a number of children. I think they had like 5. Don't fucking know because it doesn't tell me. Yeah. Anyways, they had some amount of kids. But the best known part of the myth that I guess there's different endings to it, but the best known one is that Jason abandoned Medea to marry what's her name? Caris? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, Jason abandoned Medea for the king's daughter, Glauce. Glauce. So he just fucking leaves her and all their children and just abandons them. And essentially, I know, right? They were together for 10 years. They had anywhere between 1 to 15 children, depending on the source. The known children 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 was 7. Um, and so, to help her children stay alive, she actually ended a famine in Corinth by sacrificing to Demeter and the nymphs. And Zeus, of course, at this point actually desired her and wanted her for his own. And she denied his advances not to incur Hera's wrath. And because of this, she was like, I like that. Thank you. By the way, your children will never die. They are immortal now. So because she didn't sleep with Zeus, her kids get to live forever. Now, yep. So Jason abandons them. All of that bullshit happens. Medea is enraged. She is pissed, as she should be. She sent a dress and a coronet covered in poison to Jason's new wife. It caused Jason's new wife, Glauce. That is probably not how you. Glauce is probably what it is. And her father caused them to die. She then killed all of her children. Because to make things better, I don't know. And then she fled to Athens in a golden chariot sent by her grandfather. Oh, because it's Helios, that's right.
Yep.
Afterwards, she went to Thebes, where she healed Heracles from a curse that Hera had inflicted on him. Probably the curse that like made him go insane and like kill his wife and children and all that. And she's just like, "Hey, you're a wounded soul. I killed my ex's wife and my children. Here,
Right.
Be well." But while in Athens, she married Aegeus. So the Aegean Sea is named after this guy. They had a son called Metis. Made something. However, sometimes later, Theseus, Aegeus's long-lost son, came back to Athens, but the father and son did not recognize each other. Medea, though, realized who the newcomer was and wanting to ensure the kingdom would pass to her own son, because she's being a bitch, she tried to poison him. At the very last minute, Aegeus recognized his son by the sword that he carried and knocked the cup before he drank the poison. Um, so after that event, I guess there's a couple of versions about it. But basically, one of them is that she went to modern day Iran and lived with the locals. She changed her name to Medes. And then the other version is that she returned to her homeland where the throne had been usurped by her uncle Perses. Angry, she killed her uncle and restored her father to the throne. So, depending on either one of those, will, and I guess the source that you get, will depend on what truly happened with her. But, like, but she had 8 children and killed the first 7.
Oh, well.
um, did all of those things. And then it killed her uncle, and then was like, "Here, daddy, take the throne away." So I feel like your person was a little better than mine. I feel like mine was kind of a bitch.
So they're both like they're portrayed that way, like Circe is the good and Medea is the bad. But in this book, I know I'm not getting paid to advertise the book, I promise. But in this book, they talk about there's actually the intro to the book is like a letter from Medea herself, um, talking to witches,
the
I guess,
the
or
readers.
people. Um, and it talks a lot about how she is now the symbol of like the outcasts, or the outlaws. She is the symbol of witches who don't follow like the rule of three or whatever, or don't, I don't know, create their own karma kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then she also did a lot to do with rebirth, apparently. I don't know. I just know what this book says. So she's often like a rebirth or rejuvenation type of person. If you want to do something with those, you could call her Medea. Um, and her tool of choice is a cauldron because she often brews poisons and potions and things like that. So
That kind of makes sense, though. I mean, considering the herbs that they both deal with.
yeah, it's a lot of neat information.
My character just wanted to kill everybody with poison.
It's fine. Circe married her stepson husband, so it's fine. It's fine.
So fucking weird.
It's fine.
I got into like a not a kick of like Game of Thrones, but I used to watch Game of Thrones. I never finished like the first. I finished the first season, I think. I don't know. It's been a while. Um, but like I never finished like the entire show. And honestly, instead of sitting and watching it all, which I probably should just do because it's probably good, I ended up like going to Wikipedia and just like reading the plot points. But I read it for like every single like character, so like Cersei in that one, like everybody, and it's just so fucking weird. I'm sitting here like, why
Yeah.
would she do that? Why would that happen? What's going on?
Speaking of incestuous.
Yeah. Like, don't worry, you can just make out with your aunt. All will be fine because you're about to win the fucking battle from years ago. Oh, you two are brothers because you're in love, or brothers, siblings because you're in love. Okay, fine.
you know, you know, it's
The
fine.
the whatever the dragon, the what's that show? I want to say the Age of the Dragon, but it's definitely
House
not
of
Age of the Dragon.
Dragons.
House of Dragon.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Are you going to see it?
Probably.
Okay.
We're still watching Game of Thrones right now, and then
Yeah.
we'll probably watch House of Dragon.
Well, like Game of Thrones, there is a lot of random, weird, fucking incest going on in there,
You know,
and a lot of like inappropriate like age differences. Like a
I
king
don't.
is married to like a 12-year-old, and I'm like, I know this is
But
like accurate, but so
well, and some of the like, I get that it's accurate to like the time period that's being portrayed, but why? Excuse me. Do so many fantasy like novels do that? Like, can we?
it's
It's
fantasy. Change
fantasy,
it.
right? Change it. Like, can we not?
And honestly, a lot of people, unless they're taking it from like a history aspect, like they're not gonna think about it.
Right?
Like I don't sit there and book being like, oh, fuck
There's
yeah, I
not enough
love it that
fucking
she's in.
incest in here.
Yeah, like I love that she's in love with her fucking uncle. Yeah, have a baby, have a second one. It's great. Whatever. You know what? Fuck it. Have a third.
So, and
Keep
like
having babies.
the incest in the beginning with Jamie and what's her face?
Cersei.
Um, is that her name?
Yeah.
Oh,
Literally, if you look at the calendar, I spelled it like that.
oh, well.
And I was looking at Cersei and pronouncing it Cirque, and I was like, I don't see Cersei anywhere. Like, what? She keeps saying it's linked, but I don't see it because it's fucking spelled differently.
Yeah. Anyway, that one makes sense because of the king was impotent and she needed to have a baby, kind of. Because didn't was it Anne Boleyn that did that? Not Anne Boleyn. Yeah.
Well, rumored.
Oh yeah.
It was I mean, she and her brother both claimed it didn't happen.
Right. But everyone thinks that it did.
Yeah, which is why she lost her head.
Yeah.
He died too. The brother died first, I think probably like a month before her.
Yeah. But yeah, there's there's all of that.
Incest is everywhere in fucking history apparently because that it's
Yeah.
not just Greece.
Nope. It's a
It's,
lot of
it's
the
in
ancient.
England. You know, I'm
Were
curious
there just
though.
not enough people? Like,
I'm curious though to like I'm like you don't hear it in a lot of other cultures. Is it
it's
in
a white
Norse
people
culture?
thing.
Is it in Norse culture?
I don't think so. Not that I have studied. I have not studied a lot of Norse culture, but it's from what I've seen so far, I haven't.
Let's Google it. Is Norse mythology incestual? Insectual. No, not that. Incestual. I can't spell. Um, did gods have incest? Mm, ew.
Oh, your face.
Uh, well, someone's like, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but incest turning up in a mythological text isn't very unusual.
I mean, fair.
So, I mean, I guess we'll probably talk about this when we get to like the Norse pantheon, but it says mythological sources show that sacred brother sister incest was an important feature of the cult of the Vanir. So it's not gods, but it's the cult of the Vanir.
Okay. I feel like it happened a lot bef- when people were less educated. Um, because like
I
even in like Harry Potter, they talk about how in the previous years the purebloods didn't want to mate with humans, so they just mated with each other. So
Yeah,
everybody's related.
I was gonna say they try to keep it in the family, which I think I'm not saying like the English monarchy has done that. I'm implying the ancient English monarch has in
Right.
for sure done that.
Oh yeah. Yes.
As with every culture that is well documented and learned about. Now there might be a culture that I did not know about. I know there's a couple of culture, and the reason why I wondered if Norse was similar to that, because like Norse would bathe once a week and the English would never bathe. They would never brush their
Right.
hair. They would like they weren't clean. But like Norse were the pagans. Norse were the outcasts, the like heathens, how a lot of them is described, but like there's literally sources saying that they were the most groomed and clean of everybody. So like fuck.
Who knows?
I don't know. But anyways,
Yeah. So that was Circe and Medea.
until next time.